Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, I welcome all the delegates to this National Conference on the Research organized by Government College. It's indeed a great honor for me to join this event online. Unfortunately, I was stuck up by the landslide on the way last evening and I couldn't travel. It was around Rondu, where my car was stuck up and we had to come back. But anyhow, it's good that we are online and we are joining this conference through this video presentation. Thank you very much. The topic which I have selected as a keynote for this conference is basically the focus on outcome-based education. Now, this new paradigm is talking more about the attributes and outcomes of the students rather than the outputs. Certainly, when the students are graduated, they have certain credit to their hours and they have certain grades. And again, they have some certain positions in the class. And normally, as a teacher, we assess them in terms of their marks, which they aggregate in the entire educational journey. But this is not sufficient because if we look at the employer's perceptions, it is very strange that most of the employers are not happy with the majority of the students and graduates in Pakistan. And that might be the reason that the employment in Pakistan is not very high for the higher education graduates. The perception of employers about the students and graduates are quite different than what we are producing in the universities. So certainly the outcome-based education and assessment is a new perception. It's not new, in fact, but it is an approach through which we can focus more on the outcomes and attributes of the students, which can connect them with the employability and employers and employees, and which can have a better connection with the job market. If we just look at the employer perception survey, which was conducted by Higher Education Commission in 2016 and 17 by Grant Thornton, this survey reflects very strange facts about the higher education and the quality of graduates we produce. For example, this survey has revealed that the higher education institute have to improve their assessment methods and more hands-on assessments. Instead of the traditional assessments, there is more need of practical and hands-on assessment of the students. The second problem which they could see is that the lack of the habit of research and inclusiveness in the students around the world, around the country. And third, that they don't have the skills which are required for the job market, like critical thinking, analytical thinking, self-initiative, effective interpersonal communications. At the same time, when we look at the engineering and technology and information and communication technology graduates, though they constitute the largest number of graduates in the country, the third largest, but still they again lack the discipline-related attributes which are required in the job market. And the quality human resource is not available in the market. The graduates of most of the university in Pakistan are not catering for the needs of the job market, and that's why people prefer the graduates from the international universities. So some of the recommendations which this study had, that we need to focus on the critical and analytical thinking, motivation and initiative, effective writing skills and quality consciousness, At the same time, there must be cooperation among the higher education institute about the design of curriculum, study programs, collaborative research, recruitment of graduates at the workplaces, and participation of the students in seminar debates and other such kind of activities, colloquia, and research lectures, research workshops, so that these students can be developed for the real world. Now, this uh, graph is showing the very interesting attributes which would be required for the students and the graduates in the next 10 years. By year 2025 is reflected in the study. And if you just look at the top, we have the sector-specific skills. That is the skill required for us. For example, if we are graduating a finance student, then the finance-related specific skills are very important to acquire by the students, which can help them to practically apply his knowledge and skills in the market. And then the analytical and creative problem-solving skills, effectively working with the teams. Then the digital skills or numeracy skills are also very important. The literacy, digital literacy, writing, communication skills, and adaptability is another very strong attribute the student would have to acquire the leadership and the entrepreneurial and business acumen. So these skills have been identified by the Grant Thornton for the students and the graduates in the next 5 to 10 years. And this is another very interesting study. And if you just look at this study, which was conducted in 2002, it's not very new, but it reflects that the employers had a very low priority for the CGPA, and that is might be the third or fourth lowest. They have high rating for the communication skills of the students, honesty, integrity, teamwork, interpersonal skills, and all other skills which are very much required for the job market. And certainly the student, the employer would like to have a very intelligent student, but I think the intelligence is not the only requirement. And we have to see that what the job would need and the job market would need. The outcome-based education system, which is focusing on the attributes and outcomes which are required by the job market, is connecting the students with the employer, with the job market, and they would be developed in a way that they can demonstrate these skills and attributes. Now, the focus of this approach is on the course content, that you have to review the course contents quite often, and the learning outcomes, both at the program level and at the student level, are really very important to connect the students with the market, the industrial needs of the degree and the students, the job specifications, involvement of the professional bodies in the curriculum review and the accreditation processes, and the niche inside the organization is also very important to bring the new ideas in the curriculum design. Similarly, the teaching and learning methods have to be flexible. It should be student-focused. The content should be dynamic, innovative, and flexible. And the methods of assessment should also be very, very flexible. It should not be just restricted to few exams or 1 or 2 exams, because that would not bring the kind of qualities which we need in the students. So the program educational objectives and the program learning outcomes are really very important for the students to acquire. Now, the evidence for this system is really important. We have to develop a system which can tell us the achievement of the students about the various outcomes. And if there's any deficiency in a particular outcome, then we should have a very immediately a system which can bridge that gap. And finally, there must be a continuous quality improvement system, CQI, which tells about the closing the loop, starting from the actions and towards the end. And this CQI loop is very important in the outcome-based education. Now, when we look at the traditional education system, and we see that we have the teaching and learning, and then we have some assessments. And by the end of the day, we invite the students. But in the outcome-based education, we have many more assessments, like the councils, accreditation councils, the employers, the industry advisors, the academic staff, the publics and parents, students, and alumni. They have the assessments of the students and graduates, and this is a very dynamic process. So the assessment is not just done inside the class. We have the lab interviews, exit surveys, and the students that involved in project thinking, the problem-based learning, activity-based learning. And again, the alumni and other stakeholders are really very important to assess the quality of students. If we compare this with the traditional is just we have only the assessment, and we have the teaching and learning. And by the end of the day, we give them some grades, and we don't connect these students with the job market. So this is really very important that we connect the attributes of the students with the council, the peers, and other sources. Now, the OB system is basically, if you look this hierarchical model, and at the top of everything, you have the vision and mission of the institute. And then this vision and mission is then translated to the program objectives. And then the program objectives are then translated to the learning outcomes, which is also called the student learning outcomes. And then at the bottom, we have the course learning outcome and maybe the lecture learning outcome. So we execute this from bottom to top to achieve the overall objective of the institution or vision of the institution. Now, the different levels, it's really very important that we teach in the class the weekly topics, which is the lecture learning outcomes. And then based on that, we have the course learning outcome or student learning outcome. And then we have the program outcomes or program learning outcomes. And then we have the program educational objectives, which we would like to see the attributes of the students within 4 to 5 years in the market. So the program objectives, our program educational objectives are basically we are preparing the students for the job market, and where the students would be placed and where would we like to see our student in the next 4 to 5 years is really very important. And that is what the objective of the program must clearly translate. A good program objective must address one or more needs of the stakeholders, one or more stakeholders. It should be consistent with the vision and mission of the institution. The number of statements which we place in the program objectives must be manageable and limited. It should not be simply the restatement of outcomes, rather it should be smart in the sense that it must be specific, measurable, achievable or attainable, and realistic or relevant and time-bound. And it should be forward-looking. Now, there is difference between the outputs and outcomes. Outputs are more like tangible or intangible things which we immediately have at the completion of our courses. But the outcomes are basically the student learning outcome, which are more important in terms of their attributes in the job. This slide again gives the hierarchical model that how the curriculum and course modules are developed through the continuous quality improvement, the outcome evidences, the assessment and evaluation, and then the program-specific criteria, and the feedback from the stakeholders. All these together are then used to develop the curriculum of the course. And based on that curriculum development, we define the students are program learning outcomes. And these program learning outcomes are transcended from the program educational objectives, or PEOs, our educational program objectives. And these are then coming down from the vision and mission of the college or faculty. And then at the top, we have the vision and mission of the university. So starting from the vision and mission of university, we transcend that to the vision and mission of the faculty and department. And then we go to the vision and mission of the school. And then the program educational objective and the program learning outcomes, and then the course. So the courses are designed in a way that these courses ultimately lead us to achieve the outcomes for the students in the program. Now, for a good and effective students, our program learning outcome must focus on what student will know and will be able to do. And then there must be observable and measurable actions or behaviors. We should have a very good assessment. And most of the time we have a problem with the assessment of the skills and attitudes. So we may be using the rubrics for measuring the skills and attitudes of the students. Now, the Bloom taxonomy, which we all know, is talking about the developing of three important domains of the student. It's not only the knowledge is important, which is cognitive domain. And normally we believe that 60 to 70% or 75% of the efforts must be focused on developing the student's cognitive domain. And is defined by Bloom. It starts from remembering, then goes through understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And then we have the psychomotor domain, which is like skills, that how we will be using the knowledge to solve the practical problems in the field. And again, we have six levels that we perceive: set, response, mechanism, adapt, and origination. And the third important part of the student outcomes is the affective domain, which is the attitudes. And normally we assign 10 to 15% of the weightage of our course design to the affective domain. So these three domains are really very important for the student to achieve and acquire during the graduation. So this is another way that how, for example, various keywords have been used to define the different levels of cognitive domain. For example, if you're talking about the knowledge, then for knowledge, we have the questions like define, identify, label, list, name, recall, state. So all these keywords are used normally to assess the first level, that is knowledge or remembering. And then if we go to the second level, that's comprehension, then we may use the term like characterize, discuss, explain, and things like. So for all these levels, we progressively achieve these levels in the courses, and we try to develop the cognitive domain of the students in a way that ultimately they are able to synthesize and evaluate based on the earlier levels of knowledge. Similarly, we talk of the psychomotor domain, which is the skills, doing the skills is also very important. And we have the different keywords which we use for the, for example, for perception, we may use the words like detect, hear, lesson, observe, and so on. And then finally, the affective domain, which is the attitudes of the student. And it's really very difficult to assess the attitudes and skills of the students. That is affective domain. And this is where we use the receiving, responding, valuing, and so on. Now, the department mission would come from the faculty and the university mission, and its alignment with the mission of the faculty and the university is really very important, and it must be widely published at the website of the university and also in the prospectus and other documents, so that the students and stakeholders are very clear about the vision and mission of the university. The objectives are again the broad statements of the program, which are aligned with the mission of university and faculty, and they are well defined. The stakeholders' participation is really very important in developing the program objectives, and the objectives must be measurable, and there must be a feedback mechanism which can tell us about the improvement of the attributes. If we just look at the program objectives of the electrical engineering, they, for example, say that they will have the technical skills, that the students will, after 5 years of their graduation, will have the technical skills. They will have the critical thinking, leadership and team building, and attitude for commitment to lifelong learning. So they have defined their program objectives in a very measurable way. This is another example. This is a graduate program for the MBA program, and we can see that there are 3 educational objectives or program objectives: that the graduate will possess professional skills for employment and lifelong learning. They will have attained a general level of competence in the management and to enable them to act as a creative, innovative, and entrepreneurial potentials with management tools. And the graduates will adopt to a rapidly changing environment with the learned and applied new skills and become socially responsible and value-driven citizen committed to the sustainable development. So you can see that these program objectives for the MBA program defined by the university are really very clear. And that is where the students would be within the next 4 to 5 years of graduation. We would like to see them. This is another program, physics, for example, to equip the students with knowledge, ability, and insight in physics related fields, to equip them to analyze and communicate physical facts effectively in an interdisciplinary environment, to equip students with the ability to translate and synthesize their understanding towards nature, human, and development, and to equip the student with the ability to utilize the concept of physics, such as optics, electricity, magnetism, thermodynamics, and so on, and to enable students to recognize the need for the ability to engage in lifelong learning. So these are the 5 outcomes or objectives which have been established by the university for the physics program. Now, the program objectives are program educational objectives. Our assessments and evaluated process are in place to determine. We have to ask such questions. Is there a continuous improvement mechanism which can tell us as a feedback, and then continuous improvement, and then what is the evidence that improvement has occurred? So we have to have most of the time, the attributes which we would like to see in the students after 4 to 5 years of their graduation, that should be current and relevant, and there must be some mechanism to monitor them, usually after every 2 to 3 years. There must be appropriate constituents. The student learning outcome will enable the achievements of the objectives, and effective assessment, and the size of courts, and so on. The second is the program learning outcome, which I already discussed, that these are the outcomes which we normally want to the students to achieve by the end of their degree, say 4 years of the BS program. And these outcomes are normally the learning outcomes describe what the students are expected to know and able to do by the time of graduation. These relate to knowledge, skills, and behaviors and attitudes that students acquire as they progress through the program. Students' learning outcomes to be studied and documented in the format of graduate attributes, and provide mapping of programs. Relationship of the student learning outcome and program objectives are really very important. I'll not read it, but this is another example from the Lincoln University about the MBA program, and they have defined 6 learning outcomes for the students that by the time they would graduate, they would have they would be able to apply the theoretical and applied knowledge to solve the management problems. They will have the problem-solving skills, and they will be able to communicate. They have the autonomy, creativity, and responsibility. They will be demonstrating the leadership, and they will be identifying the ethical issues and problems in the society and play their role. This is another example, but I would not read it. It's for the business management school. This is a teacher education program. For example, what we would like to see in the graduates after 4 years of the BA program, there would be learners and the learning environment, teaching, professional. So you can have such kind of keywords to develop your program learning outcome for the teacher education. Now, the assessment of the students' learning outcome or the program learning outcome will involve the collection of data to assess the level of students have attained the outcomes or not. And then you will evaluate the results, and to see that if there is any improvement required, you will the performance will be assessed. You will identify the key indicators, and you will collect data. But maybe every course program learning outcome may not be reflected in each course. And then we map all these learning outcomes with the course and the student and the objectives. Now, the course learning outcomes describe what a student should be able as a result of learning experience within a course. This is the third level or fourth level that the course learning outcomes. When we teach a course, then we have some learning outcomes in our mind, and these learning outcomes are connected with the program learning outcomes. So we have the lecture learning outcomes, then we have the course learning outcome, then we have the program learning outcome, and then we have the program objectives. And on the top of that, we have the department vision and mission, which is connected with the vision and mission of the faculty, and at the top we have the university. So we discussed this, that the curriculum and course reviews are quite often done, and that is related to the program specific criteria, the assessment and evaluation, outcomes and evidences which we receive from the assessment of the outcomes, then the quality improvement and the stakeholders. All these are then giving us inputs to review the courses, and these courses are dynamically evolved and evaluated every year, so that we can bring the feedback of the various stakeholders in the design of the programs. Each program should cover general and specialized professional content, educate breadth and depth, and appropriate components in science and humanities. Evaluation of teaching learning processes, mode of teaching learning, lecture, tutorials, seminars, projects, internships, peer group discussion, and so on. So these are required to develop the outcomes in the students. Now, the curriculum is really very important for the development of the outcomes in the students, and this would require a very designed experience of the students, the prerequisites, the course syllabi, and the course and elective courses which we normally define in our program. Another very important attribute is the interaction of the students with the industry. And when we are talking about the professional students or the teaching students, their interaction with the schools and colleges as teachers is really very important. So we need to involve the industry and the businesses and the stakeholders to ensure that the curriculum is relevant to their needs. Opportunity for students to acquire industrial experiences via internships, design projects, professional engineers, and so on, and communicate with the industry through industry advisory board. There must be a member from the industry or business in the course and faculty review committees and department review committees. This is really very important. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I wish I could have been there to deliberate more and to take your questions, but certainly I'm happy that this first conference is being held in Skardu despite of all these challenges. And from Curriculum International University, our support will always be available for such interventions and for such holistic actions and such holistic objectives. So thank you very much. I once again appreciate the hard work of the conference team led by the conference leaders. And I wish this conference to be a great success for the region. And I hope that in future, we will collaborate with the college to have a international conference together. Thank you very much. And have a nice time. Thank you.